After years of being called the family's babysitter, my dad finally snapped across the dinner table. "If you want to live here, you'll have to start paying rent." The room went silent, my sister smirking into her glass, Mom pretending not to notice, as though this was the moment they'd been waiting for. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I smiled, stood, and without a single word, I walked to my room, grabbed my bags, and drove off into the night. A week later, my sister texted, but by then, everything had changed. "My name is Hannah Riley, I'm 29. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned." What happens when the scapegoat they dismiss as help finally leaves and takes more than they ever realized with her? That night, headlights carved the road ahead of me as I drove past the fields outside town. The house behind me shrank into darkness, along with years of unpaid babysitting, unpaid respect, unpaid acknowledgement. They had raised me on duty, not love, and duty had become their excuse to never see me as more. At a red light, I checked my phone. No apology. No concern. Just silence. That silence spoke louder than Dad's threat ever could. I wasn't family. I was staff. I found a small apartment the next morning, creaky floors, mismatched cabinets, but mine. For the first time, I unpacked for myself. Every picture I hung, every plate I stacked, whispered one thing: freedom. I didn't know then what storm was coming. I didn't know the same people who dismissed me would come crawling. But I was ready. Because when you've been invisible your whole life, walking away makes you unforgettable. The first few nights in my new apartment felt strange. The silence pressed against me at first. No kids crying down the hall, no mom calling my name, no footsteps demanding I fix something. Just the hum of the fridge, the creak of the pipes, and my own breathing. But slowly, that silence became comfort. For the first time, I didn't wake up with someone else's schedule taped to my day. No drop-offs, no late-night babysitting while my sister went out, no guilt trips from Dad about being lazy. I picked up extra shifts at work, saved money, and even started painting again, something I hadn't touched since high school. My little studio became more alive with color than the house I grew up in ever had. Then came the text. It was a Tuesday morning. My phone buzzed with a message from my sister. "Where are you? The kids need you. Mom said you're being selfish. Just come back already." Selfish. The word burned, though not the way it used to. It almost made me laugh. After years of raising her kids, sacrificing my 20s, being her safety net, suddenly I was selfish for choosing myself. I typed back slowly, carefully. "I don't live there anymore. Figure it out." Her reply came instantly, sharp and panicked. "You can't just abandon us." Dad's furious. Mom's crying. "You'll regret this." I stared at the words, my chest tight but steady. They thought I'd come running. They thought guilt would drag me back. But I wasn't theirs to command anymore. For the first time, the weight was on them, and I was finally free to breathe. By the end of the week, their silence had turned into chaos. Mom left me voicemails layered with dramatics. "Hannah, the children miss you. You know your sister can't handle everything alone. You're tearing this family apart." Dad's tone was sharper, angrier. "You think you're grown because you moved out? You'll come crawling back once you realize you can't survive without us." And my sister? She kept texting at all hours. The words shifted from demands to begging, then back to insults. "You're cruel. The kids keep asking for you. You're not just their aunt, you're their second mom. How can you do this to them?" Each message twisted a knife they had planted years ago. But this time, instead of bleeding, I felt the wound closing. Because I wasn't abandoning anyone. I was giving back what never should have been mine to carry. One night, I sat on the floor of my apartment. My paintings leaned against the walls, half-finished but vibrant. I looked around at the mess, coffee cups, open sketchbooks, laundry I hadn't folded, and smiled. For the first time, the chaos was mine. It didn't belong to them. The next morning, I sent a single message in reply to all their noise. "You called me the babysitter. That's not family, that's labor. Pay a nanny." I hit send, my hand steady, my heart surprisingly calm. Minutes later, 3 dots appeared, then vanished. No reply. For once, they didn't have an answer. And I realized they never did. All they ever had was me. Days passed, and the flood of messages slowed, but not because they accepted my absence. No, it was because they were scrambling. A cousin texted me quietly. Your sister asked me to watch the kids. She's desperate. Another wrote, your mom told everyone you abandoned the family. People are starting to talk. Let them talk. For years, their gossip had been my prison. Now it was their chain. One night, Dad showed up outside my apartment. His car idled on the curb, headlights cutting across my window. When I opened the door, his face was set in stone. You're making a fool of us, he said. Do you know what people are saying? That our daughter walked out and left us to rot. I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorway. Maybe you should think about why I left. His eyes hardened. Don't be dramatic. You had a roof, food, family. And now you throw it away over what? A little rent. I let out a bitter laugh. It was never about rent, Dad. It was about respect. And you never gave me any. For a moment, his mouth opened as if to argue, but nothing came. He turned on his heel, muttering something I didn't catch, and drove off. As his taillights disappeared, I stood in the doorway longer than I needed to, the night air cool against my skin. It hit me then. They weren't worried about me. They were terrified of what life looked like without me holding it together. And that fear? It wasn't mine to fix. The following week, I got another text from my sister. This time, it wasn't laced with insults or threats. It was raw panic. The babysitter quit. The kids won't stop crying for you. I can't handle this. Please come back, Hannah. I'll pay you. Pay me. I read those 2 words over and over. For years, I had been free labor. My reward had been eye rolls, comparisons, and a title, the babysitter. Now that I was gone, suddenly my time had value. But I didn't reply. Instead, I sat at my tiny kitchen table, sketching another painting. The strokes came easier these days, freer. My life was starting to feel like the canvas, blank at first, messy in the middle, but mine to shape however I chose. That evening, Mom called. Her tone was softer than before, almost pleading. Hannah, your sister is drowning. You've made your point. Now come home. Family is family. You don't turn your back when things get hard. I closed my eyes, holding the phone to my ear in silence. For years, they had told me that same line whenever they wanted something from me. Family is family. But I finally saw the truth. Family to them had never been love. It had been leverage. I lowered the phone and whispered, then maybe we were never family. I hung up before she could answer. For the first time, I didn't feel guilt. I felt weightless. They had built their world on my shoulders. Now, without me, it was collapsing. And I wasn't rushing in to catch the pieces. By midweek, the silence from their side was deafening. No more calls. No more guilt-ridden messages. Only the faint echoes of a family scrambling without its crutch. But silence has a way of speaking louder than words. I got the proof when a mutual friend pulled me aside at work. Your sister was at the grocery store yesterday, screaming at the cashier because her kids were running wild. Everyone saw it. She kept saying, my sister abandoned me. She ruined my life. Ruined her life. I almost laughed. I had given her mine for years, weekends, nights, birthdays. She had lived free while I bore the weight. And now, with that weight gone, she was crumbling. That evening, I sat by the window of my apartment, the city glowing outside, and let the quiet wrap around me. My phone buzzed with another message, this time from Dad. You've proven your point, but this family doesn't work without you. Come back, Hannah. Enough games. Games. That was what he thought this was. A performance. A tantrum. He still didn't see it. This wasn't a game. This was my life. And for once, it belonged to me. I typed a reply, steady and short. I'm not coming back. Then I turned off my phone, set it face down, and picked up my paintbrush. For the first time in years, the strokes didn't shake. Because this wasn't loss. This was liberation. And it was only the beginning. The fallout didn't take long to spread. Aunt Linda, always the family gossip, called me one afternoon. Her voice was hushed, conspiratorial. "Hannah, your parents are at their wits' end. Your sister's kids are out of control. Bills are piling up, and they don't know what to do without you." I let her words hang, waiting for the punchline. There wasn't one. Just silence. "Maybe now," I said softly, "they'll understand what I carried all those years." Aunt Linda sighed. "They won't admit it. Pride won't let them. But Hannah, they're scared." That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, memories flooding back. Nights spent rocking crying babies while my sister partied, mornings cleaning up messes while Dad grumbled about my lack of ambition, afternoons spent tutoring kids who weren't mine while Mom scolded me for not smiling enough. They had called me the babysitter, the helper, the spare. Now, without me, their foundation was collapsing. The next morning, I posted a photo on social media, just me in my new apartment, paint on my hands, sunlight streaming through the blinds. The caption was simple: "When you stop being their safety net, you learn to fly." The comments poured in, friends cheering, strangers resonating, even a few cousins sending quiet messages of support. And somewhere I knew my family saw it too. They wanted me back in chains of obligation. Instead, they were watching me soar. And the higher I rose, the smaller their world looked beneath me. The wedding anniversaries, the birthdays, the family barbecues, they went on without me. But something had shifted. The smiles in their photos looked thinner, the celebrations smaller, the comments beneath their posts sharper. People noticed. People whispered. I noticed too, not because I cared, but because their absence no longer burned me the way it once did. It was a cool distance, like watching a storm roll over someone else's horizon while I sat safe inside. In my apartment, life unfolded gently. My daughter's laughter filled the walls when she visited, my paintings dried in messy stacks, and the quiet I once feared had become my greatest comfort. Bills were mine to pay, yes, but so were the rewards. My independence. My choices. My joy. One evening, Mom's number flashed on my phone. Against my better judgment, I answered. Her voice was cracked, weary. "Hannah, we need you. Your sister can't do this without you. Please, just think about coming home." I let the silence stretch before replying, calm but unshakable. "Mom, I did think about it. For 29 years, I thought about it. And the truth is, I was never home there. I was labor. I was convenience. I was invisible." She sniffled softly. "We didn't mean." But I cut her off. "You did. You all did. And I finally believe you." I ended the call, my hands steady, my chest strangely light. Later, I opened my journal and wrote, "Family is not the people who demand you carry them. Family is the ones who walk beside you when you're carrying yourself." I closed the book and set it beside my newest painting, a sunrise bleeding over rooftops, warm and endless. That night I didn't cry. I didn't ache. I simply breathed, free in a way I never thought possible. They had called me the babysitter, but I had become my own keeper. And the keeper of my peace never gives it away again. I was in a corporate boardroom, the contract for $1 billion deal glowing on the projector, when my phone buzzed. The hospital's number. My chest tightened. I answered in a whisper, expecting something small, something manageable. Instead, the nurse's voice cut through like glass. "Your daughter is in critical condition." The world blurred. My pen slipped from my fingers, clattering on the polished mahogany table. Executives stared, confused. I barely heard them. Then came the part that hollowed me out completely. "Your stepsister did this. And the detective won't act. Her husband is the CEO." For a second, I couldn't breathe. "My name is Vanessa Reed. I'm 35. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. What happens when power shields cruelty, until someone stronger decides to break the shield." I raced to the hospital, my heels pounding across sterile floors, the scent of antiseptic stinging my throat. My little girl lay motionless, tubes running from her arms, machines beeping in steady rhythm. My hand shook as I touched her skin, cold and fragile. The nurse leaned closer, her eyes wet. "Your stepsister came in furious. Security cameras caught part of it, but the detective said his hands are tied. Her husband runs the company that funds his department. For hours, I sat there in silence, watching my daughter fight for each breath, rage simmering beneath the grief. They thought their money made them untouchable. They thought I was powerless. What they didn't know was who I really was. By morning, federal agents stormed their corporate offices, briefcases of warrants in hand, their voices commanding. Glass doors shattered under flashing lights, servers were carried out in black cases, employees scattered like birds startled from a wire. And as my phone lit up with headlines, I whispered to myself, "This isn't revenge. This is justice." The hospital's walls pressed in around me that night, humming with the quiet cruelty of waiting rooms. My daughter's tiny hand rested in mine, pale against my skin, machines breathing for her when she couldn't. Every beep, every flicker of light carved fury deeper into my chest. But beneath the grief, my mind sharpened. My stepsister thought she could hide behind her husband's empire. She thought a badge in his pocket meant immunity. They had no idea who they were dealing with. By dawn, the news broke like wildfire. Federal agents raided CEOs' offices. Reporters swarmed the glass tower downtown, cameras capturing agents wheeling out files and servers. Anchors speculated about fraud, offshore accounts, political bribes. While the world gasped, my phone buzzed with messages from numbers I hadn't seen in years. "Is this your doing?" "Vanessa, what happened?" I didn't answer. Because this wasn't about them. This was about my daughter, lying in that hospital bed because cruelty had been allowed to grow roots under the protection of money. At noon, the detective who had dismissed the case the day before showed up at the hospital, his face pale, his voice trembling. "Mrs. Reed, we're reopening the investigation. Things have changed."
Changed.
As if it was luck.
As if it wasn't me.
I looked him dead in the eyes. "You ignored her blood yesterday. Don't pretend today is justice. This is cleanup." He couldn't hold my gaze. That evening, I stood by the window of my penthouse, city lights flickering like nervous eyes. My daughter slept, her breathing steadier now, nurses moving gently around her. My reflection in the glass looked nothing like the woman they had dismissed as family disappointment years ago. They had tried to erase me with words. They had tried to cage me with hierarchy. Now, I was the storm tearing through their illusion of safety. And the storm had only begun. The raid was only the first domino. By the third day, headlines screamed across every platform. Corporate fraud scandal unveiled. Employees whispered to reporters. Photos of shredded documents hit the internet, and the CEO, my stepsister's husband, vanished behind a wall of lawyers. But none of it mattered to me more than the sound of my daughter's breathing. I sat at her bedside, listening, waiting for her eyes to open. Each flutter of her lashes was worth more than the billion-dollar collapse unraveling outside. Still, justice wasn't finished. My stepsister hadn't been seen since that night. The family buzzed with excuses. She didn't mean it. She was overwhelmed. It's all exaggerated. They didn't know I had the footage. The nurse slipped me a USB drive, grainy hospital security video of my stepsister storming down the hallway, shouting, her hands pushing too hard, my little girl's scream echoing faintly before the camera cut.
Proof.
Enough to shatter every lie. I held the drive in my hand, cold metal pressing into my palm. For years, they had dismissed me, the quiet one, the unimportant one, the woman in the shadow of their power. But power doesn't last when truth has teeth. And this truth was hungry. The detective called again, his voice almost pleading. "Mrs. Reed, if you'd like to provide evidence, we can guarantee prosecution." I thought of his smirk 2 nights ago when he'd said, "My hands are tied." Now his hands were shaking. I didn't answer right away. I stared at my daughter, her chest rising and falling, fragile but alive. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about making sure they never had the power to hurt her or anyone else again. The fourth morning, the air in the hospital felt different. Nurses whispered in corners, their eyes flicking toward me with a mix of pity and respect. They had seen the headlines. They knew something was shifting.
My phone buzzed again.
This time, it wasn't the detective. It was my stepsister. A single, desperate message. We need to talk. Please don't let them destroy us. I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening.
Us.
She still thought we were bound together. That blood was a shield against consequence. I typed back one line. You did that yourself. Then I turned the phone face down. At my daughter's bedside, I brushed her hair gently from her forehead. She stirred, her eyes half opening for the first time. My throat tightened. You're safe now, baby. I promise. Outside the window, sirens wailed in the distance. The city was cracking open their empire, one subpoena at a time. By noon, the detective returned, his arrogance replaced by humility. Mrs. Reed, he said softly, we've received federal orders. Your stepsister is no longer untouchable. If you have the footage, he paused, almost ashamed. It could end this. I looked at him, holding the USB drive in my hand. For once, I didn't feel powerless. I didn't feel erased. I felt like the axis everything turned on. And for the first time, they couldn't stop me. That evening, I left the hospital for the first time in days. The city air was sharp, filled with flashing lights from news vans parked outside the courthouse. Reporters swarmed, chasing anyone connected to the scandal. I walked straight through them, the USB drive tucked safely in my purse. For years, I had been silent in family gatherings, ignored in boardrooms, dismissed as the less important Reed. Tonight, every camera lens turned toward me. Ms. Reed, do you have evidence? Are the rumors true? Did the CEO's wife attack your daughter? Their questions collided like thunder, but I didn't flinch. My heels clicked across the pavement with a rhythm of certainty. I wasn't here to perform. I was here to deliver. Inside the federal building, an agent met me at the door. We've been expecting you. His voice was calm, professional, but I caught the flicker of relief in his eyes. They had been chasing whispers. I was carrying proof. I placed the USB on the table, the small device heavier than any gold. This, I said, is the truth they tried to bury. He nodded, sliding it across to a technician. Within minutes, the footage lit up the monitor. Gasps filled the room. The shove, the scream, the fall. The undeniable moment my daughter's life had been jeopardized by someone who thought wealth was immunity. The agent looked at me, his voice steady. This is enough. I exhaled slowly, the weight in my chest easing for the first time. For years, they thought my silence was weakness. Tonight, it became the weapon that would undo them. The footage spread like wildfire. By the next morning, every major network replayed it on loop. My stepsister storming down the hospital corridor, my daughter's small frame colliding with the floor. The headlines were merciless. CEO's wife under federal investigation. My phone buzzed nonstop. Lawyers, reporters, distant relatives. Everyone wanted a piece of the story. I ignored them all. Instead, I sat at my daughter's bedside, holding her hand as she stirred awake again. Her eyes fluttered, her lips forming a weak smile. Mom, I swallowed hard, blinking back tears. I'm right here, baby. Always. For the first time since that call in the boardroom, I felt like I could breathe. Meanwhile, the family scrambled. Dad left a voicemail dripping with desperation. Vanessa, you can't let them arrest your sister. Think of the family name. The family name. That name had been used to silence me, to chain me, to keep me in line. Now it was nothing but a badge of shame. That evening, federal agents swarmed their estate. Neighbors filmed as my stepsister was escorted into a black car, her once perfect hair disheveled, her face pale. The CEO, her husband, stood helpless, drowning under the weight of financial crimes that no amount of influence could erase. I watched it all unfold from the hospital room, the news playing muted on the small television in the corner. My daughter squeezed my hand, her voice faint but clear. Are we safe now? I kissed her forehead. Yes, sweetheart. We're safe. Because justice had finally broken through walls that money built. And for the first time, the empire that mocked me was crumbling at my feet. The world moved quickly once the footage aired. Indictments followed within days. The CEO's face plastered every news outlet, headlines circling fraud, bribery, obstruction of justice. My stepsister's name, once spoken with pride at charity galas, now hissed through the press like poison. But for me, time slowed. My daughter's recovery became my world. Every day she grew stronger, sitting up, eating small bites, whispering questions about when we'd go home. I answered gently, holding her hand as though it tethered me to the earth. Still, messages slipped through the cracks. Cousins begged me to show mercy. An uncle emailed, urging me to think of the family's legacy. Even my father tried again. Vanessa, this could ruin us for good. Drop it while you can. Drop it. As if justice were a game of cards I could fold out of pity. I looked at my reflection in the hospital's window one night. Tired eyes, but steady. Stronger than the girl they used to overlook at holidays. Stronger than the woman dismissed in business meetings. Stronger than the daughter they labeled a disappointment. I whispered to myself, "You wanted me invisible, but now you can't escape the sight of me."
And it was true.
Reporters stopped asking about them and started asking about me. Who was Vanessa Reed? How did she stand so firm against a corporate empire? What did it mean to lead a billion-dollar deal one day and bring down corruption the next? The irony was sharp. The very family that had spent years silencing me had handed me a louder voice than I'd ever dreamed of. And I intended to use it, not for revenge. For closure. The boardroom gleamed with glass walls and sharp suits. I stood at the head of the table, pen in hand, finalizing a billion-dollar deal that would secure my company's future. The room buzzed with anticipation until my phone vibrated. The hospital's number. I hesitated, then answered. A nurse's voice, steady but urgent. "Your daughter is in critical condition." My hand froze, the pen slipping from my grasp. Executives stared as the words tore through me. I whispered, "What happened?" The nurse's next sentence felt like ice in my veins. "Your stepsister did this, and the detective won't act. Her husband is the CEO." For a moment, the air left the room. The deal, the contracts, the $1 billion, all meaningless. My daughter, my only child, hurt. My name is Vanessa Reed, I'm 35. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. What happens when cruelty hides behind power and discovers power can be broken? I rushed from the boardroom, heart pounding, heels striking marble. At the hospital, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. My little girl lay still, machines keeping time in shallow beeps. I held her hand, cold and fragile, rage pressing against my ribs. They thought money was a shield. They thought influence would protect them. They didn't know who I was. By dawn, federal agents stormed their offices. Doors shattered. Servers seized. Headlines erupted. And my whisper turned into a vow. This isn't revenge. This is justice.